Hello, I wanted to take a minute to go over a new feature added, a new utility added into our Vicinity 4.40, which is our September 30th, 2022 release. First off, you're going to notice that up in the menu area, we've added a new menu option for utilities. We've actually taken two existing utilities that have been around for quite some time, mass component maintenance and unit of measure change, and pulled them into this utilities. We feel it'll just make it a little easier to find those utilities. But we also have two new utilities. In this video, I'm going to go through the component formula ID change, and in another one, we'll go over the component stocking unit of measure change. So one of the use cases that we've had for a while with clients is that they have a item number, in this case, let's say a raw material part number, that they want to change its part number from one thing to another and have it ripple through all records in the system. That is tedious to do if you're doing it manually. So for example, you'd go create the additional item, the additional component in Vicinity, and then go to each of the formulas and do a substitution and something like that. So, and that's actually, you could use the mass component maintenance to do that, but also all the history and being able to change the item numbers and things like that on history, that was rather problematic. So we had been doing this behind the scenes on demand for a client that might need this done on a handful of items. We would do it through SQL. So we took all that work that we've done over the years of identifying how you would do this, and we turned it into a utility for you to use. I do want to ask you to use this with some caution. First off, it's a version 1.0 out there, so please make a backup of your database if you're on premise and before you do something like this. But the whole idea is it goes from one part number to the next part number. We call those IDs. They're not something you can just simply go and change once they're, especially like in a batch and things like that. So, for example, use case would be I'm taking a raw material that I have in a number of different records in my system, and I want to change it to a new part number, a new component, let's say RMO2A as an example, and I can even give it a new description. Now what's going to happen when I do this is going to create the new component A, so it basically gets to change the ID on the record, as well as while I'm at it, I can change the description. But really kind of the part to be looking at is what's going to be affected. This is an all or nothing proposition. So you're going to change everything or nothing. We're not going to keep some items, some formulas with one or the other. That would be the mass component maintenance that you could do that with. You can kind of hand pick which ones you want to change. In this case, you're going to go through, there's going to go through a lot of data. I've just done a drop down on the entity type, and here are the different tables, if you will, or types of data that's going to be affected. There's some bin data, some batch data, there's some formula data, there's actually even some planning data like planned orders. In this case, this happens to be a raw material, so a typical planned order for a raw material would be a planned purchase order. You may want to go look that up and see if procurement is waiting to order that part, those type of things. But what we really wanted to do was be able to give you a way to look through this data before you do it. Again, you're not going to be able to change anything. It's just a matter of giving you a sense of comfort that you know what you're doing and you know what the impact will be. So for example, if I wanted to go and see if it's in an open batch as an example, I might go look at batch procedure. We've also got a status here, so I may only want to be looking at planned or released batches. So I can see that it's sitting in a number of my planned batches that have not even been released or done any work against, and it may even be in some released batches as well. So I may want to make some determinations on what I want to do with these batches before I actually make this change. At a bare minimum, I might need to reprint a batch ticket so that they're working with the right part number, things like that. The other thing we added were hyperlinks to this screen. So if you ever have a question about what's going on, in this case on this batch ticket, you can just do a drill back and drill into that screen, which is batch entry, but also drill into the batch ticket itself. And here, I guess it's got listed a couple of different times on this specific batch ticket. So when I process this, or when I say, yes, I'm wanting to do this, all of these batches will be updated. The other piece, I guess, to note is you can actually have fairly complex searches and look at, greater than, less than, not equal to, includes, in, all those type of things. So you can really kind of get a feel for what data is going to be affected. Now, this function works for components, but it also works for formulas. So a formula ID that we've got some clients that like to set up experimental formulas with one part number or one formula ID, and then when it goes to commercialization, they change it to a production formula. There are a number of ways you could do that, but we have a few clients who would like to just get rid of the old and in with the new. So in this case, I've got a formula that I like to pick on, that here's my existing formula. I can give it a new formula ID, say VM Red A. Same idea. You've got various entities that are being affected. You've got basically batch headers and component facilities. So basically, we're saying this formula is used to make this product. If I go to this formula, item ID, DCFG08 as an example, and I go to the subcomponent section right here, this is where it's tied to this specific end item. So when I change it, it's going to go from DCVM Red to DCVM Red A when I process this. So again, it's an all or nothing proposition. We've also got batch headers, so it may be being used in a batch. Again, I might want to go and see what batches I have out there for this particular formula and address these formulas if necessary. So basically, enter the old ID, enter the new ID, and hit the process button, and that will go and change all data for formulas as well as components. So let us know how this works for you. Again, remember, this is our first release of it. We have really tested the heck out of this, but as anything like this, be a little careful the first time you use it, and we will report anything that we find as we find it. Anyway, we appreciate your help and look forward to seeing how we might be able to help you in the future. Thanks a lot and have a great day.